Hi guys, welcome back to Codemaster Coach, your medical coding tutor. In today's video, we're going to be talking about conventions. Conventions are instructional notes. As we use our code books, when we arrive at the correct code, a lot of times we need these little conventions to reassure us that we're at the correct code. For example, to start off with conventions, we have what are called instructional notes. And I have my notes here. Instructional notes are just that. They start off with general notes that provide general information on code usage in a particular section. So for example, if I go to chapter 15 on pregnancy, childbirth, and puerperium, I have a note right at the beginning of the category or that section of codes. Remember we said a section is a group of digits, of codes. And it says, codes from this chapter are for use only on the maternal record and never on the newborn record. So thank goodness for that general note, because that note lets me know if I use these codes, I need to make sure that I'm coding on the mother's record and not the newborn's record. Okay? A general note told me that. Another example of conventions are what we call includes and excludes notes. And they're just that. They're codes in the classification system that are mutually exclusive, which means whenever I'm coding a diagnosis, it should only be found in one place in this entire code book. Well, these includes and exclude notes help me to confirm that I'm at the right place. So, for example, if I go to A00, let me find that one first. And I'm going to let you see the code book as I do these so that it makes sense to you as well. A00 through B99, those of you that have your code books. And those that don't, let me show you what I'm talking about. And we're going to look for an includes note. See how we have include, exclude, and exclude two. We're going to talk about all of those. But as far as the inclusion note, it says these codes A00 through B99 includes diseases generally recognized as communicable or transmissible. Okay? Now if we go to D50, D50, iron deficiency anemia, it says for that code only, D50 includes acidotic anemia and hypochromic anemia is included in D50. So see how that include note gave me instructions, directions of what to do. Now for exclude means it's not here. So if I go to Q, Q03. Q03, congenital hydrocephalus. It says Q03, congenital hydrocephalus, excludes, for example, acquired hydrocephalus. Because remember, congenital means the person was born with this condition. So my exclude note lets me know all of these conditions are excluded from Q03. So that acquired hydrocephalus, you need to go to category G91 because Q03 only applies to congenital conditions. Okay? So now we see how our includes and our exclude notes help us to better understand. But notice with the exclude notes, you have exclude 1. There's a number after. But if you see an exclude to, that means not included here. So for example, if I look at code F90. F90. Notice how at F90 I have includes, which you already talked about, but I have an excludes 2. It's got the number 2. That means if it's a warning, if a patient has anxiety disorder, F40, then I need to go to category F40. But if the patient has both attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and anxiety, a code from this category, F90, could be used along with the code for the F40, anxiety. So if you're coding a patient with anxiety disorder and you come up with F90, it's letting you know that's excluded from F90. Anxiety should be at F40 and F41. Okay? We have another instructional term, code first and use additional term. What I need to make sure you're understanding about that is when it comes to code first and use additional codes, we need to understand the difference between an etiology and a manifestation. An etiology is an underlying disease or underlying condition. A manifestation is something that occurs because the person has a disease process. So for example, diabetes and circulatory conditions. Patients who get sores or any kind of open wound on their body and they have diabetes, it tends to heal much slower than a person that doesn't have diabetes. So when a diabetic patient does end up with some type of wound, open wound, and oops, by the way, they have diabetes, our coding needs to say just that the underlying or the etiology is diabetes, and because of diabetes, oops, that's why they're continuing to come in over and over and over for that same open wound that just won't heal. So we're identifying that condition with 2 codes. So when it tells you code first, your underlying condition or your etiology, that's what it's telling you. Code first that diabetes, and then code the manifestation, which could be the open sore. Okay. Code also is another instructional term. It indicates that 2 codes may be required to fully describe a condition. So example G4701. I cannot see. Let me show you the note. Code also associated medical condition, because notice G47 says insomnia due to a medical condition. So your coding is telling them, oops, this patient has insomnia. They're unable to sleep at night, but it's due to a medical condition. Well, if your coding says that, then you need to also code what the medical condition is. So if you ever see code also, understand that's what it's telling you. Make sure you're coding also whatever that underlying condition is. Okay? 2 abbreviations, NEC and NOS. NEC, not elsewhere classified, and NOS, not otherwise specified. And the best way that I can break that down in layman's terms is NEC, your doctor gave you such a thorough diagnosis, and you're trying your best to look it up in the alphabetic index so that you can find the code. But when you get there, your alphabetic index is not broken down to a point where you can find that specific code. It'll give you the category, but even the category doesn't break it down to that specificity that you need. So in that case, you usually grab the unspecified for it, and it'll tell you that condition NEC, not elsewhere classified. You're not going to find it anywhere else. Whereas NOS, not otherwise specified, that's when a condition can be broken down. You have a urinary tract infection due to E. coli. Well, if he didn't tell you that it was due to E. coli, he just said urinary tract infection, then all you can code is the urinary tract infection. But had he been more specific, or had he otherwise specified due to E. coli, then you could code it. So NEC, you got it all. You just can't find a code, and the code book hasn't been broken down enough to give you that specific code. However, when you get there, it'll say that condition NEC. NOS, not otherwise specified, had the physician specified it a little more accurate with more specificity, you could have coded it, but he didn't, so you can't. So I want to show you two codes that will help you understand NEC and NOS. Let's start with NEC. Now remember, NEC, there is no code that specifies what your physician was as specific, G-H-I-J, as he could be. J94.8. Other specified plural conditions. Okay? In other words, he specified it, but your code book won't break it down enough for you to code it to that. So other specified captures whatever you need to put there, okay? And NOS, let's go to I-42-9. Okay. It says your diagnoses did not specify what type. So all you have is cardiomyopathy unspecified. Because had he been more specific, you could have coded it more specific. But because your physician didn't give you that specificity that you needed, then all you can go to is that unspecified, not otherwise specified. See it there? And with that NEC, that J94, see if it's there. No, it didn't. It's not there. NEC. But just know that that's there. All right. Cross references advises the coder to look elsewhere before assigning a code. So, for example, C. So if I'm in my alphabetic index and I'm looking up hemarthrosis. Trying to have these things ready before we record so I can go right to them. Well, no. Hemarthrosis. Here we go. H-E-M-A-R throsis. Hemarthrosis right there. Okay. Now if it's traumatic hemarthrosis, if I go down to traumatic tells me C, sprain by sight. So in order to code hemarthrosis that's traumatic, then I need to look up sprain, main term sprain, and then wherever it is, instead of coding under hemarthrosis. Okay? So it's telling me, it's an instructional note telling me what to do. See also, let's go to psychosis. Look under psychosis. Okay, we're at psychosis. If I have neurasthenic, alphabetical order. Oh, don't see it. Psychosis. Psychoneurosis. Okay, I need to go to psychoneurosis. Here it is right here. Let me put you there. There goes psychoneurosis. Okay. If you need to code neurasthenic psychoneurosis, Right there, F48-8. But what if it told me psychasthenic? Well, right there, psychoneurotic. It's telling me go to neurosis. See also neurosis. So see, if I needed neurasthenic, it's there, F48-8. But if I needed psychoneurotic, then it's telling me see also neurosis. So it's telling you where to go. If you can't find the subterm for the main term, follow your instructional notes. Okay? And then one more, traumatic brain injury. Well, alphabetical order. Brain. Injury, brain. Okay, brings way over here. Here it is. We're under main term at the top. See, bold print far to the left, injury. Come down to brain. Okay. Traumatic. That's going to take us way over. Oh, where did it go? Right there. Golly's right up under the main term brain, you guys. Sorry about that. There's brain. And if I go to subterm traumatic, it says C category S06. We see that? We're into main term injury. Come down to brain. Subterm traumatic. C. Well, just telling us traumatic is S06. Okay? S06. What about C, a condition? A lot of times we're coding charts and we're so excited to look up the main term and the alphabetic index. And for example, it says breast mass. And we go to breast. But when you get to breast, what does it say? It'll say C, condition. That means you need to go to what's wrong, because remember in coding, we code what's wrong with the patient, not the site. In ICD-10, we code what's wrong with it. So out of breast mass, you go to mass. So if I looked up the term arterial thrombosis, what term do I look up? Arterial? Arterial, again, is the location. We don't look up arterial. We go to what's wrong. Thrombosis, it's thrombosed, it's swelling, it's enlarging. Okay? Next you have punctuation marks. We have parentheses. Parentheses give you supplementary words. Okay? They're non-essential modifiers, and they just give you the reassurance that you need that you're at the right place. For example, if you look up the main term pneumonia, pneumonia always sticks out for me because in ICD-9 it had tons of non-essential modifiers. In ICD-10 it has some as well. So let's look at the ones for main term pneumonia. So if I had you look up the main term pneumonia, this is what you'd find. Okay, see pneumonia? See those words in parentheses, acute, double, migratory, purulent, septic, unresolved. Well, you won't find them as subterms under the word pneumonia. So then it just lets you know. These are non-essential modifiers that are right beside the main term. So if I need to code acute pneumonia, it's letting me know J18.9 is the correct code. If I need purulent pneumonia, J18 is the correct code. If I need just pneumonia, period, J18 is the correct code. Okay? So the key here is that these non-essential modifiers in parentheses are just supplementary terms that help us know that we're at the right place. This is it might not have a subterm that says purulent or acute, but you're at the right place with your coding. Now remember, those words in the parentheses are not required to be there. They're just there to help us. So if it doesn't say, like with pneumonia where it didn't say acute or purulent, I just said pneumonia is still J18.9, you're still there. Pretend those parentheses, those words in parentheses right there weren't there. Okay? You have what are square brackets. Square brackets. Now remember, you have your regular round parentheses, but then you have your square brackets. Square brackets enclose synonyms or alternative words or abbreviations and explanatory phrases that provide additional information. Like, for example, if I looked up human immunodeficiency virus, when I get there, it would say in square, HIV. Okay, because that's what human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, stands for. So it just gave me the abbreviation in the square brackets. And then other things like, for example, neuropathy and the sickle cell type neuropathy, it's telling me that sickle cell, D57, is the right code for the sickle cell, but I also need to identify the fact that this patient has neuropathy also. So right beside it has a square bracket that says N08. And I guess you need me to show you that. Let me let you see. I'm firm believer you need to see it in your code books as you're coding. You guys have got to, I always tell my students, love your code books. Get to know your code books. Okay? For example, neuropathy. Nephropathy, here we go. Is your main term. And we're going to go down to sickle cell nephropathy. Right there. So in order to accurately code that, we need to code this main term nephropathy, sickle cell, so we need D57 and those dots, and it let us know there's more digits to that code, but we also need to code the N08 for the nephropathy. So in order to accurately code that, we're going to need 2 codes, and that's what those square brackets let you know. Okay? Then we have colon. Colons are used in both inclusion and exclusion notes after an incomplete term that needs one or more of the modifiers following the colon. And that one you're going to really have to see. So let's go to category N92.6. N92.6. Okay. Right here, N92.6, irregular menstruation, unspecified. Okay? But notice with this excludes, it's saying irregular menstruation with, if you have lengthened intervals of scanty bleeding, you need to be in the N91 instead. Or shortened intervals of excessive bleeding, you need to be at N92.1. So that's excluded from this irregular menstrual unspecified in 92.6. So see how our code book, if we looked up irregular menstruation, it would give us N92.6, but because there is a more specific code for irregular menstruation with lengthened intervals of scanty bleeding or shortened intervals of excessive bleeding, it's telling us elsewhere to look for those codes. So see, your code book helps you with those. Okay? All right, moving on. We've got some relational terms. And relational terms are words like and. So if you're giving a diagnosis that says tuberculosis of bone and joint, when you look it up, that can be understood to be tuberculosis of bone, tuberculosis of joint, and tuberculosis of bone and joint. So as a coder, if my diagnosis again said tuberculosis of bone and joint, I'd look in my alphabetic index and look up to see if I can find tuberculosis of bone and joint. And if I can't find one code that covers both, then I need to assign 2 codes, one for bone and one for joint. So it's used as and or. So again, if there is one code that covers both, then I use just the one code. But if I can't find it, it's called a combination code, then I'd have to code tuberculosis of bone, tuberculosis of joint. Okay? With. That can be understood to be associated with or due to. So in my alphabetic index, when I'm looking up headache due to tension, headache with tension, then I will look to that W with, which is usually right after. Even though it's in alphabetical order, with is going to stand out and let me know if it's with these conditions, this is the correct codes. And same thing with due to. It indicates a causal relationship due to. For example, retinopathy due to diabetes. That's that etiology and manifestation. If the patient didn't have diabetes, they wouldn't have this retinopathy. So if your physician says retinopathy due to diabetes, then I need to code that diabetes first and then that retinopathy. Okay? So, as you can see, conventions are just that. They give you the extra help, assistance that you need, instructions, directions as you're using your code book. So take some time and go back over each of these instructional notes that I gave you today and just try to see them and understand them, get a better understanding of them. And if for any reason you have any questions or concerns, feel free to email me at codemastercoach@gmail.com. Okay guys, thanks for joining me.